It's Ask Lee Wednesday. Right, so as always, just in case this is the first time you're watching this, what you want to do, if you have a question that you want me to answer on this segment, then simply leave it in the comments below to any one of these Ask Lee videos, and I'll pick it up. Alright, so today's question is from, let me just turn this way so that I can read it like an old person. John Hiero, thanks for the vid. This is a Ask Me question. What's your opinion on performing demonic magic in a house with a toddler in it? Side effects, beneficial effects, precautions, etc. My living room is the place where I can have privacy. Thanks. Okay. Alright, I did speak about doing magic with children in the house in a previous video, but it was a while back, and I think it's a very important topic, so we should speak about it again. And you did mention specifically demonic magic. I don't think there's really any difference if you're doing demonic magic or any other form of magic. If you're calling demons or gods or any kind of spirits, the same things apply. What you're going to be looking at is protection, cleansing, and discernment. Those are probably the most important things. And the main reason for this is that it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you are doing magic, especially if you are contacting spirits and speaking to spirits, you are going to be attracting astral parasites. As soon as you switch that magic switch on, you switch the light on and the moths come, and the moths being the astral parasites. So when you are doing this type of work, discernment is incredibly important, whether you have a toddler in the house or not, because you don't want to be speaking to something which is not the spirit that you've intended to speak to. And they can be very tricky, so you have to make sure your discernment is top-notch, not to scratch. And of course, you know, remote work in a magical life, you want to be constantly doing protection and cleansing work. Just generally cleansing work is important because we pick up negative sludge throughout the day, every day, and we want to just clean that off to make sure that we are nice and clean. Now, concerning a toddler, previously what I spoke about mostly was children who can express themselves, really. When it comes to toddlers, it's a little more difficult. You know, to say there's something scary is a bit more difficult for a toddler than it is for, say, a 10-year-old. And therefore it becomes important to try and create an understanding of what your toddler is going through, because if they do see something scary, they're going to want to communicate it. They're going to communicate in a particular way which parents often understand. They often, you know, they know that their child well enough to understand that when they say X, Y, and Z, this is what they mean. But, you know, in a lot of cases, parents just kind of brush off these things as being nightmares or things like that. In our case, that's usually not true, because we are working with these things, therefore we understand them better. You know, the monsters under the bed, or the bumps in the cupboard, or things like that. And you know, when my daughter was growing up, there were times when she had a ghost in her room that kept knocking on the cupboard, and she knew it was a ghost because, you know, I was quite open with all of this stuff. She knew it was a ghost, but it was scaring her because she didn't like these knocks. It was, you know, every time it knocked, it gave her a fright. So I went into the room, I sat down, it knocked, and I said to the spirit, look, you're scaring my daughter, I don't appreciate it. You can move around the house if you want to, as long as you're not going to scare my daughter. That's fine. If you're going to do that, then you can bugger off. We don't want you around. So, you know, I think a lot of people, even witches, even people who are in the magical life and everything else, they have a spirit in the house and they can't identify it, therefore it's something strange, and they want to get rid of it and, you know, banish it, and it's therefore evil. That comes from a Christian worldview, Christian mindset. We need to obviously discern what the spirit is, because not all spirits, ghosts or disembodied entities or spirits that are there, they're not always bad. Sometimes they're there to actually protect the space, the house itself. It may be actually be a house ghost. So to banish it and get rid of it and just immediately think there's evil is not a good thing. But you know, there were quite a few situations with my daughter. I was working with Papa Legba at one stage, and I was doing some working, and you know, she was about 12 at the time, and Papa Legba came strolling through the house, stopped at her room, looked in on her to make sure she was okay, and then just carried on. And my daughter kind of like wasn't expecting that, so it did give her a bit of a fright again, but she felt that it was a kind spirit, and you know, it didn't terrify her or anything like that. But it's because she was raised knowing that these things are happening, and it all being explained to her. And when she did have something happen to her, I sat her down and I explained the possibilities, what it could be. I didn't immediately dismiss it. So I think it is important to, obviously, if we're going to be working these type of things, to not keep our children away from it to try and protect them. It's more of a protection to actually explain it to them, so that they understand it better. Again, for a toddler, that's not easy at all, I know. So what you can do is put up protection, put up wards. And when I'm talking about that, I don't mean just, you know, in your magical space that you're working in, because all that's doing is protecting one little part of the house. So you're protecting your space where you're working, but the rest of the house has no walls. And your toddler might be sleeping in another room. So all of these astral parasites are going to be attracted to the space that you're working in, but they've got to go through that space in order to get there. So the best thing to do is to ward the entire house, the entire property. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. But make sure that those wards are installed and they are maintained. And then obviously cleansing work is important. No matter what you do, something's going to get through. You're going to have negative energy somewhere. You just do cleansings on a regular basis. And again, as I said, discernment. When you do work with a demon or any other kind of spirit, make sure that what you get is what you called. So, you know, test it. If it doesn't like being tested, then it's not the spirit you wanted to work with. It's not a divine intelligence. A divine intelligence will actually expect you to test it, because it wants to make sure that you're actually doing things properly. So test it. If it's not the spirit that you called, then banish it. And really as simple as that. Disadvantages, advantages, benefits, things like that. Your child will be raised with the understanding that these things are quite real. They are not fairy tales, they are not just nightmares. They will be raised in a way which will allow them to better understand things and allow them to better deal with them on their own. It won't be a case of the child sees a spirit, a ghost every single night, and it's brushed aside as just being a nightmare. The child will understand what it is, will be able to get a good understanding, or will get a good knowledge and abilities to actually discern what these things are themselves from a very early age, and they can grow on that over time. So I think it's a very good thing to keep them in the loop from as early as possible. And again, coming back to toddlers, it's not easy. You know, even if a toddler sees a scary thing in their dream or in their room, it's a scary thing. You know, it's something that they feel shouldn't be there, and because it's something that shouldn't be there, it just suddenly pops up. It's not mum or dad, or it's not a pet, or it's not one of their favorite toys, then it's going to scare them, and that fear is obviously going to create worry. And so, you know, it's important to listen to them, to understand that this thing is quite real. It's definitely not imagination, it is very, very real. And to try and help them through understanding what it is and what to do. You know, if it is a spirit that's scaring them, whether it's beneficial, whether it's, you know, malevolent or benevolent, it doesn't matter, it's scaring them. So either that spirit comes back at a later stage when they're ready for it, or it changes its appearance and it becomes something which is less scary, something which the child can interact with. Again, you know, we have to be careful of astral parasites here, obviously. So a good idea here, if your child does start interacting with the spirit, is to work with that spirit also and discern that it is not an astral parasite and that it is actually a spirit, a god, a goddess, a demon, an angel, whatever it is, which is considered to be a divine intelligence, is there to help them, to guide them, to protect them. Make sure that what your child is interacting with is for their best benefit and not for not there to actually harm them or do anything which is detrimental to them. So working with your child on those things, again, very important, and will help them and guide them and aid them through their own process. And at a later stage, you know, they may grow up to be teens and they're not interested anymore, and that's fine, you know. They still have that experience, they still have that knowledge, so if they come back to it again later, they can pick up from where they left off. If you are doing, as you said, demonic magic in your lounge, then don't just protect the lounge, protect the entire property, the entire house, so that anything that does come through is what you want to come through and not an astral parasite or something which is detrimental. Yeah, and that's really it, I think. Okay, so hope you have a good one. Hope that answers the question. And as I said, if you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments below and I'll add them to this segment, the Ask Lee segment, and answer them here. Okay, so have a good one and cheers. Bye bye.